what is the distinction between pastor and deacon, one, and then as a follow-up to that, can women be deacons? So I guess we have to clarify, is deacon is an actual office, or is it a servant, or is it both? So
I hate to keep answering them all. We treat it as an office, deaconess. There is some ambiguity in the text because it says they're women. So are these the wives of deacons, or is this the office of a deaconess? We recognize deaconess as an office because deacon itself and deaconess, this is not a ruling office, it's a service role. A deacon is someone who is recognized for his service in the church, and he has an office where his role is to serve, not to rule, not to make decisions. It's not a leadership position in that sense, and so we don't exclude women from that office. Now I know there are people who do, and I'm sympathetic with their view. It's fine. I just hope they let the women in their church actually serve. I don't care if they call them deaconesses or not. Just wouldn't exclude women from service in the church.
Yeah. So you don't. So I guess you don't make a distinction then between the office of deacon versus just a general servant, which could be male or female. Because I know that's what a lot of the distinctions are with some people on this question.
Yeah. No. What we try to do is staff the permanent service roles in our church with people who qualify as deacons. The reason those qualifications are given is because this is a recognized, you could call it a role if you want, but it's an office basically that they have to qualify for spiritually. And since he applies those qualifications to the women, we would say it's legitimate to see deaconess as an office. Again, doesn't confer on her any extra authority over men or give her an automatic teaching role, but it does recognize that she's appointed to a more or less permanent role of serving in the church, and the church recognizes that and esteems her for her service. So we call her a deaconess.
Fair enough. Justin or Casey?
I'm maybe a shade different on where I land on that I'm hesitant to call it an office. I gravitate more towards it as a role. It's a function that women can fulfill in a general sense, in that they are servants. I look at Acts 6 when there was a need for the widows that arose, and they appointed, interestingly to me, even though it was a need for the widows, women, they appointed 6 men to care for that. I think Acts 6 is the beginning of the deaconate, at least the office of that. So I have no trouble at all with females in the church who have a desire to serve. And if you want to call them deaconesses, I suppose that's fine. But I hesitate a little bit, shy away from the office.
Yeah. So I kind of take the same position. So let me throw this out at both of you then, is in 1 Timothy 3. So obviously it talks about qualifications for deacons starting in verse 8. If we move down to verse 12, it says, "Let deacons each be the husband of one wife, managing their children and their own households well." So a lot of us, I would take the position, I would say that, we can call men and women deacons and deaconesses if we want to in a lay sense, but yet there is still something conferred about an office of deacon that would clearly be a male according to that verse. So that would be my position, and I know a lot of others, so I'd be curious as to how you guys would answer that in response.
Yeah, and you ask how would I answer that argument. I can only tell you what John MacArthur would say about it, that the text that sort of all of this hinges on is 1 Timothy 3:11, where it says in the King James, their wives. So it sounds like it's talking about the wives of deacons. But actually the Greek word just simply means women. And it says women likewise. And MacArthur says the word likewise suggests here that he's talking about a third group in addition to elders and deacons. Now, women likewise, deaconesses basically. And he says, because it would be odd, he's given all the qualifications for an elder. He doesn't give any qualifications for the wife of an elder, but he gives then the qualifications for the office of deacon. Why would he be concerned with qualifications for the wife of a man in a lesser office, the deacon's wife? So this seems to set women who serve in the deaconate role, and so that's the way we interpret it.
Which brings a good point in that deacons are a servant. They're servants in the
Right.
church.
Yeah, that's right. And see, I think maybe Justin, you stumble over this because you're a Southern Baptist, and y'all don't have.
No. No, I'm not.
No,
a
you
Southern
grew up as
Baptist.
a Southern
I grew
Baptist,
up
right?
Southern Baptist.
You grew up indoctrinated with the idea that a deacon, that's an office of authority in an SBC church, average SBC church. But actually, as the deacons are described in the New Testament, it is entirely a service role. It's not a position of authority. Though it's an office, we call it an office, it isn't a place of authority, it's a position of service.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's perfectly fine for women to fit into that kind of role. And I think you'll find that, because as I said, there is disagreement on this, and I can live with it. I have lots of friends who hold the view that women shouldn't be considered deacons or members of an office. But I think you'll find that those who hold that view, it's because they think of the office of deacon as a position of authority, when really that's not how Scripture describes it at all.
Right.